arrest, because again, we're going to carry the lion's share of this bill.
Lieutenant Brady, do you have anything you want to add?
Just that I'm the unit commander for the Special Victims Unit, and the Domestic Violence Unit falls under my command. I've been with Atlanta. I'm in my 24th year. Last year we handled over 1,000 domestic violence cases in my unit, and I definitely see a need for this. I think it closes a loophole between when there's an arrest and the person is let out on bond, and the victim has not had time to get a TPO. So I feel like there's definitely a need for it.
Thank you. I see no questions, but we appreciate you taking the time to give us the benefit of your experience.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Calling Holly Tuckman with the YWCA. And ma'am, if you could confine your comments just a few minutes as well, we'd appreciate it.
Chairman, I'm Holly Comer, and as you said, with the YWCA of Northwest Georgia and Cobb County, and also a member of the Commission on the Georgia Family Violence. And so I'm here in support of this bill and wanted to bring to it a face of a client who actually was in a domestic violence situation, fled from Cobb County to Bartow County. He stalked her there. She got a no-contact order. She felt safe because she had this no-contact order, so she came back to Cobb. He came and started stalking her again. She called the police, and as the officer said, they could not arrest him because it was a no-contact order. So therefore, she was like, but I have this protection, and I'm in fear, and he's coming back and stalking me. So she finally got a TPO in Cobb County. He was arrested on a stalking order there. He's actually in prison at this time. When he gets out, he'll have a sentence in Bartow County as well for violating the no-contact order. But if this piece of legislation had been in place, he would have been arrested on the spot, basically, or when she had called, similar to in a TPO situation. So we just ask that you support this bill as it is written from the Senate, and we greatly appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. I see no questions. Thank you again. Shelley Centerfit.
Mr. Chairman, in the interest of time, I'd just like to say amen.
Seasoned veteran. I hope I'm saying this right. Greg Laughlin, is that right?
Mr. Chairman, no comment from me unless there are questions. I'm with the Georgia Commission on Family Violence, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. I see no one else signed up to testify. What's the will of the committee? Mr. Ramsey moves due pass of Senate Bill 86, else by substitute, else, yeah, we'll just say by House Committee substitute, so I really ought not go ahead and repeat the LC number on the Senate Committee substitute, but we'll just say by substitute. Second by Mr. Atwood. Are there any amendments? Seeing none, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of gentleman's motion signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion's adopted. Thank you, Senator Stone. Let's call House Bill 156. Mr. Neal.
Mr. Neal. Mr. Chairman. Looks like I cleared the room for you.
I'm telling you, some people have that effect.
I just don't
Mr. Neal.
Chairman. Say about that. Looks like I cleared the room for you.
I'm telling you, some people have that effect.
I just don't say about that.
Looks like I cleared the room for you. I'm telling you, some people have that effect.
I just don't say about that.
Looks like I
before you here today, and I just commend Chairman Setzler and the members of the subcommittee for their fine work. House Bill 156 is a simple bill brought by the GBI in response to a couple of situations that they found last year in their policing of internet activity relating to exploitation of children, and found a couple of circumstances where individuals were advertising online for minors, and because of a loophole in the law, we're unable to prosecute them under Georgia law. House Bill 156 closes that loophole by saying simply that if a person is believed to be having custody or control of a child, that those individuals are also included in the laws prohibiting the exploitation of children as identified in Code Section 1662, 1664, 1665, and 1668. I would yield for any questions, and certainly would appreciate favorable consideration from the committee today.
So this is to address the adult soliciting another. This is where the second adult comes in. Can you
That is correct.
Give us more of a picture on the practical situation that we're looking at.
If someone
fact specific.
I think the two cases that they experienced last year were individuals who were portraying to be parents of children, and were offering those children who they were portraying to be the parents of those children for services on the internet. And although they were discovered, because of the lack of clarity within the law, the GBI was unable to prosecute them. This clarifies that, so that if future cases such as this are identified, the GBI will be able to prosecute. I think they had to turn to federal authorities to prosecute those cases last year.
Okay. I don't have it in front of me, but is online, as we see it in lines 11 and 12, is that a defined term in the code?
It's just not supposed to be hyphenated.
Oh. Okay. I'll still ask. Is it a defined term? Do you recall?
I don't know. If it is, it's not for this code section. We use it throughout the code.
Okay.
It's not defined for this code section.
Okay.
And it's not defined for this article.
Does it need to be? Such as it is. Mr. Pack.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman, I see that the current law is an agent. Would it cover a situation where that person enticed? So, for example, the agent would be the one saying that I have a 2-year-old that I'm willing to. Do we need some language that says believe to have control of a child, or do you think this covers that situation?
I would yield to learned attorneys on that, but I believe that it would cover it.
Let me ask Mr. Spehouse, if you don't mind, Chairman,
Okay.
Neal, to accompany you so you can tag team the issue.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What this does is it broadens it as he's described. That person still has to believe that there is a child, and that they come here intending to commit an act of child molestation, aggravated child molestation, that thing. So there still has to be an intent element. This just simply allows that person. What we've got right now is a safe haven, whereas you can come into Georgia, quite frankly, and prior to committing the act, if you were going through a parent or guardian in Georgia, then you haven't committed an act when you show up here with the intent to commit child molestation. You would actually have to commit an act of child molestation to violate the law. This just broadens that. So the intent element is exactly the same here as if you were dealing directly with the child. This just now means if you're dealing with a parent or guardian of the child.
Okay. May I follow up? Sure. I understand that, Mr. Spehouse. So, for example, if an agent, a GBI agent's online, and that person is pretending to be a parent of a minor child.
That's correct.
Having discussions with that person.
Yes, sir.
So the language that you're adding, it says, or any person having custody or control over a child.
Right.
So to apply the literal meaning here, it seems to me that agent has to have a control of the child for him to violate that law.
The offender has to believe that they have custody or control.
I thought that too, but if you read it, it says you do it online, right? It says it's against law to seduce, solicit, lure, or entice a child. Okay, that's clear. Or another person believed by such person to be a child, which would be a situation when an agent pretending to be a minor child, right?
Correct.
Then it says, or any person having custody or control of a child, which means a parent who is allowing their child to be lured or used for the purpose. And the question is, what do you cover the agent situation when agent doesn't have a control of a child? Do you want to make that against the law as well, or do you think that's covered on the current language?
I believe it's covered, Mr. Pack, and I say why. The element of what the offender would believe is that you believe that individual that you're communicating with is another person to believed to be a child or a person having custody and control of a child, so that another person believed is that element that I think you're describing. I believe it's the intent element of the offender, so I believe it's covered. Well, you know us, we're open-minded. I mean, what would you be thinking to qualify?
Something similar to that. I know that's a little confusing, but
I'm sorry, Jill, say it again.
In other words, he's trying to deal with a situation where you're dealing directly with a GBI agent pretending to be a parent, and the GBI person is also pretending to be the parent of a child, and it's actually another GBI agent. So it's the double.
well, they would never be a child.
Right, they would never be a child.
Never be a child.
They would never be a child.
So take the language on line 14 and say, or any person having custody or control of another person believed by such person to be a child.
Just repeat another person believed. I got you. That's certainly the safest thing to do.
Just to be clear, we're talking about on line 15, or any person having custody or control of a child or believed
to have
custody or control of a child. Is that correct?
And I mean, in this modern strict constructionist world, maybe that is the safest thing to do.
I mean, we just came off the Wilson case on, knowingly possessing.
Right.
So first day, construed in terms of its plain meaning, right?
My advice is that we do modify it there so that it's clear.
Mr. Ramsey.
Wouldn't it be a little bit cleaner if we simply said, or any person purporting to have custody or control of a child, instead of having to add that second believe back in? Because that's really what you're trying to do, is get the person that's...
If you use that language, the intent would be on the person. The intent has to be on the defendant, so the person has to believe.
We've got to describe the intent element of the offender.
So,
right, but
agent would say, I'm purporting to have custody of a child, but that's not really the issue. The issue is the person has to believe, otherwise not a crime under the statute.
But I think if the defendant, I mean, ultimately you're trying to capture anyone that is out there representing themselves. I mean, and your issue is, well, and I agree with you, is this serves as a limitation. It kind of potentially narrows your ability to prosecute the undercover sting situation. But I think if you qualify it as purporting to have custody or control of a child, that really goes to the conduct by and between the defendant and the person that's trying to act as a middleman and negotiate this type of transaction.
Could I respond, Mr. Chairman?
Purporting does not go to the intent element. It goes. An individual has to believe it.
Right.
I guess I'm having a problem with the purport.
I haven't looked at the cases that have analyzed this code section, but I know there's several out there. It would be my position that I think we should replicate language that's already in the statute that possibly has been challenged and upheld before, and then simply make clear that we are replicating that to apply to the person having custody and control of the child, so that the individual believes that that's what we're hunting. Because if that interpretation has already been, I don't want us to put another standard or another element in here that hasn't been interpreted.
Let's do this. Mr. Broderick is in the corner of the room waiting for his bill. Let me ask y'all to step back. Let's suspend consideration on HB 156. Let's take a few minutes and get the verbiage right so that we don't come back on a technicality in a year or two.
We'll be right back.
And while you're doing that, I'll ask Representative Broderick to come forward, who has House Bill 302. And then once, just for members of the committee, once they're back with their language and they present it, then we'll go ahead and have questions on that, just to make sure that we're all clear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here this morning to present House Bill 302, which is the annual housekeeping bill as far as controlled substances and dangerous drug update. You have a copy of the bill before you. It is something that in Georgia Code that legislature is required to do to approve new entities and add other entities to the controlled substance and dangerous drug list. We look at Section 1. These are chemicals or entities that are showing up as street drugs. They have no medicinal purpose. They are completely illegal as a Schedule 1 drug, so we put it into 1325. Section 2 adds a couple of compounds to Schedule 3. These both are anabolic steroids, would be in the same classification as that. Section 3 are new drug entities that have been added or approved by the FDA in the last year, and those simply go into the dangerous drug list as far as Georgia Code goes. Section 4 is it's not a new drug, but it's a new dosage form. It's a patch oxybutynin that has been recently released. And then Section 5 is simply a spelling error that is a correction for previously approved drug.
Okay.
I'll be glad to try to answer any questions.
Sure. It's the annual update.
That's correct.
Okay. This is your first bill, I understand. I think it's an amazing thing that you have put yourself in a position to be asked on the floor of the House to go ahead and talk to every chemical component of lines 30 through 73. I think the gentleman has just set himself up for a nightmare, but
well,
we're willing to back you.
Okay.
We're right behind you.
Most of these drugs, I can tell you, we hope you never see them, because a lot of them deal with serious chronic conditions, cancer drugs, any number of conditions that we hope that no one will ever have to use them.
Questions?
I would appreciate the committee's favorable approval.
Any questions for the author?
Yes,
Mrs.
ma'am.
Cooper.
Mr. Chairman, as a freshman, I hope that the representative does understand that even though he may be questioned, that he doesn't have to answer all the questions from the well, and the quicker he is out of the well, the better off he is.
That's just not true. I don't know what else to say about that. That's just not true.
I have taken excellent example from my seatmate, Mr. Tanner, who was there last week, and he's going to be able to coach me.
I think Mr. Tanner may be the prototype on that,
Yeah.
So that's for sure. What's the will of the committee on House Bill 302? Mrs. Cooper moves due pass of House Bill 302 by substitute LC 410068S.
That's correct.
Are there any amendments? I'm sorry, second by Mr. Atwood. Are there any amendments? Seeing none. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor of the gentlelady's motion signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Thank you, Mr. Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the committee.
Let's do this. Let's take 10 minutes while some language is being worked out on. It's a real 10 minutes, I hope, on House Bill 156. So we'll just suspend for a few minutes and come back in 10. Thank you. Representative Neal or Mr. Spehouse, do you want to go ahead and read the alternative language that I think represents a meeting of the minds on ensuring that we're not back here in a year or two?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do believe we have a meeting of the minds, and I'm going to let Mr. Spehouse share that with you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'll lay it out, and of course, ask lead counsel if I miss it, but on line 14, the first insert, the word "or" would be struck there. on line 15, at the end of the word child, where is an insert, we would insert the following phrase, or another person believed by such person to have custody or control of a child.
Could you repeat that, please?
Yes, sir.
Slowly.
Or another person believed by such person to have custody or control of a child. No, I'm sorry, there is a comma between or and another. That's before the or, you're right. Sorry, thank you.
Okay, so it would read, on line 14, another person believed by such person to be a child, comma, any person having custody or control of a child, comma, or another person believed by such person to have custody or control of a child.
That's correct.
We believe that parallels the above provision about child or another person believed to be a child.
Okay.
And this covers.
Do members have that language straight, just for purposes of review? Anybody want that repeated? Any questions about that language to the author, Mr. Spahos? Seeing none. What I'll do is entertain a motion, or we'll just, well, let's do this. Let me go ahead and get, I'll get a motion, then we'll go ahead and amend it. We'll pass it by substitute. So what's the will of the committee? Move do pass by Mr. Hightower, second by Mrs. Cooper, of HB 156 on the amendments. Mr. Pack.
Mr. Chairman, on line 14, we strike the word or, and in line 15, after the word child, insert a comma and the following, or another person believed by such person to have control or custody of a child.
It's
Custody
Or
or
custody
control.
control of a child.
Okay. Any objection to the amendment? Any objection? Seeing none, the amendment's adopted. Are there any further amendments? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second of due pass by substitute of House Bill 156. All in favor of the gentleman's motion, signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. Thank you for the good work
Thank you,
on
Mr.
it.
Chairman.
Thank
Members
you.
of the committee.
We, since we're postponing House Bill 125 until Wednesday, we've got nothing else further on the agenda. I want to thank members for coming out this morning and helping us to keep the wheels moving on the legislation that needs to move. So thanks again, and we're adjourned.